Congrats. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul. I see you. All right, Charlie. Finish on. Coach Carl.
Great job, guys.
Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to episode 199 of today's Leader, the Coach Curl podcast. This episode features a great interview, another great interview with a global creative marketing visionary, Andre Philip, the CEO and founder of ELA Advertising, which is a global creative advertising agency headquartered in LA. Now, he founded ELA in 2004 to capture the spirit, the culture, the vibe, and the attitude of LA, where great creative ideas are born and where his creative energy and zest for advertising began. He oversees all aspects of the agency, including creative, business strategy, culture, client service, and operations. He's played an integral role in expanding the creative presence of the agency, and they have amongst their brand portfolio, they've worked with leading brands like TikTok, Disney, Easter Seals, PepsiCo, Thermador, and Western Digital. This was truly an amazing conversation, and I know it's a conversation that you will enjoy. There were so many takeaways, whether it be from a marketing perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective, and also in the leadership world of building culture and great teams. Stay tuned. After a word from our sponsor, I bring you Andre Philip.
The Coach Curl podcast is brought to you by Think and Grow Business, the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
So welcome to today's Leader podcast. I've got Andre Philip. How are you, Andre?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful morning over here in Australia. It's a great afternoon where you are in LA. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I own ELA. We're a global creative ad agency based in Hollywood, California. Started off in entertainment, doing movie posters and movie trailers at a very young age, and really built the agency from the ground up. And we have amazing clients from TikTok to Disney to Netflix to Western Digital, Thermador, different types of genres and verticals. But really, at our core, we're a creative, strategic global agency.
Excellent. And I think so many people would love to have clients of that caliber. So where did ELA come from? Was it from a compelling vision that you had, or was it a sense of purpose, or was it something that you ultimately just loved doing and then created a business around it?
I think it's a combination of all of that. In entertainment, which is where I began my career, there is a speed at which entertainment advertising works. And there's also a finish and a polish that is very particular to entertainment. And so, that was my training ground is working on so many different movies and shows and things like that. Where you have to pivot and work very quickly. And during that time, I had friends that were in general market agencies, and they had, weeks and months to my hours and days. And, I thought, what if I can combine the best of both worlds, where I can take the fit, finish, polish, and speed of entertainment and blend that with the strategy of a general market agency. And that was the beginning of ELA. And, and I started it by literally just by myself with a computer and a phone, and just, didn't have a major plan, but I knew that I wanted to do things a little bit differently.
How big is ELA now? How many staff do you have?
So full-time staff, we have 50 people. And, what I like to say is that, it's, we work, we produce like 100 because we're that efficient, and our processes and the way in which we operate is just unique by design and how I've structured the agency. And so we get a lot done with our core team here.
Okay. And on your website, it's you proudly wear the badge that it's a great place to work. Tell me a little bit about what makes ELA a great place to work.
Yeah, so we're very proud that we actually got our Great Places to Work certification last year. And it's we're amongst some great companies and big global brands. And I think that it's absolutely a badge of honor, but more so than that, it's what it represents. And, they interview every independent interviews with the employees, really dig deep to find out so much about the culture, the support, the management, the leadership, their roles, and things like that. So,
yeah.
I think that, being a Best Places to Work certified company is a big monumental task because it speaks volumes for the culture. Because you could be successful and have great clients and a great business and be profitable, but that doesn't mean that you have, happy people. It doesn't mean that you have a culture that's tight and something that people really stand behind. Because I think that to me is the most important thing. And, the expression of that is amazing work, but you can't have one without the other. And I think that it's, a people-centric business like every business is, but it's not just for our customers, but also in our own four walls.
I think a first focus for every leader is always to be on their people. And so many businesses miss the mark with that engagement and how it creates that and drives a performance culture. And I really like the concept that you talked about, that concept of people having each other's back. I suppose it's tight-knit. They're working together. They're setting the performance standards. And people, a lot of businesses miss that. And I really struggle why that they miss that engagement with their team, because it ultimately, as in your case especially, it drives a performance standard that is better than what those other companies and other businesses are potentially getting.
Yeah, I think so. But I think that starts with, leadership, but it has to trickle down. And I think that all companies want a great culture. You're not going to hear somebody say they don't want that.
Yeah.
I think, implementation of that is where the magic is. It starts with a clearly defined goal, that everybody understands what the true big goal is, not just the little tasks that have to get done, right? But where are we going? Where are we heading? And how do we encourage and inspire people to head towards that goal together and realize that we are all one? And we have part of our brand values is the spirit of one. And we believe that we rise and we fall together, and that it's almost like a chain. And if one person if that chain breaks, we all feel it. So we work closely because we do believe that we work better together, and that we have this culture of unity and of collaboration and communication. And what's really great about that is it actually transcends to our clients, where they feel that nimbleness, they feel that how high touch and how hands-on we are, not just transactional. So I think it's just something that like any muscle, it's something that you have to continue to encourage and inspire on a daily basis, not just in an annual review.
Yes, and it's the actions and behaviors and ultimately how we execute that strategy that is so vital. So when you were starting the business, it was just you and a laptop. Was that part of the vision, and was that part of the purpose or the reason behind why you were creating ELA? Did you envisage a culture that was going to be a great place to work?
I wish I could say I did. I don't think I had enough foresight at that time and at my age to really envision that deep into it. I think I just had something to say, and I wanted to build something that was unique. And as time went on, I think that as you build a business where it's not just a party of one, but it's a party of many, many people, I think you realize the importance of that. And I think that because I started off solo, I appreciate the fact that, even just one person is a blessing when you start out, because you can actually afford to have one person to help you, no matter what that person is doing. And so starting to add these great, talented resources around you that at one day you didn't have. So I think starting from the ground up, there's an innate appreciation for those around you. And I tell my team that I would not be here without them, because this isn't the party of one here. This is a group. And I think looking around and having nobody, and then looking around and having a group of people makes you so grateful for every individual, because you know what it's like to have to do it by yourself.
Absolutely. When I look at the ELA website, I see statements like, we question everything, discovery is hiding in the chaos, no one is going to invite you to be great, part madness, part method, bottomless optimism. And over here in Australia especially, we would not see those sorts of statements being put out there in relation to, say, from a marketing platform. So tell me about what sort of client that attracts into your organization.
I think it attracts clients that aren't afraid to push the envelope. That we believe that, the whole, like what you said, discovery is hiding in the chaos. We're brought into, it's typically a business problem. And we have to solve that problem with this thing that we call marketing and advertising. And that's the expression of how to solve that issue. And I think that, the core of who we are is a unique group of individuals that go beyond what's being asked of us, that we search for answers, and that we're not afraid to question, like we say, question everything. And we question everything, don't take it personal, right? Because we have to dig deep, and we have to get at the core of the businesses and the brands that we work with. I think that's so important, and not just take dictation and say, well, we want to do this, and we say, got it, we're going to go do it. It's like, well, time out. Let's all collaborate, because we're all on the same team. It's not agency and client, it's agency and client all working towards one goal. So I think that, to answer your question, I think we attract clients that want to push, attract clients that want to do something a little bit unique, that want to make a mark in a big way, that don't want just the status quo, that want an agency that's going to fight with them and push. And one of the things that you didn't mention that is on our website is a statement that I have, which is, we believe that business is personal. It absolutely is personal. We spend so many awake hours, both client and agency, or anybody, any business, so many awake hours. And I say awake hours because you wake up, you go to work, and then when you go home, there's only a finite time that you're awake, and then you go to sleep, and then you're back at it. Yeah. And so it is so personal to what we do. That doesn't mean that it's all that we have, but it's a big component of who we are. And I think that, with our clients, we understand the gravitas and the responsibility that we have to do an amazing job and succeed with them. Yeah. And I think, it is so personal to us that we treat every client as though it's our own business, and what would we do, and how would we manage that brand, that account, and those dollars for them. And I think that permeates because there's heart when it comes to business. It's not about transaction and a big high five. It's about caring for the people on the opposite side, not just who you work with, but on the client side.
Yeah. So tell me about, so some of the leaders that will come to you would probably think marketing's a bit more of a vanilla concept, a bit blander. So I guess part of the process, so they've been courageous enough to step into your space. They're probably incredibly uncomfortable within that space. So what are the steps that you take, or the agency takes, to make those leaders comfortable with that relationship and that creative?
I think it's communication. I think that, and I know that sounds like a simple answer, but it really is. It's being able to. It's not about us making them feel comfortable with what we're doing. It's about us digging deep so we can understand what they're trying to do, and to ask questions. And sometimes, when you're not asked enough questions, or we don't dig too deep, it may seem that the solution is quite simple, when a lot of times, even a simple question like, what keeps you up at night, right? What is that thing? What is that one thing that you want us to achieve? And sometimes they didn't mention that in their brief or their ask. And so understanding what really keeps a CMO up at night, but also being able to go wide with that, and understanding from operations people, salespeople, financial people on the team as well. I think it's important to get everybody in the room and to align on what are we trying to do. And I think that dialogue starts becoming a dialogue of vision, comfort, and of clarity. And I think when people have clarity, they're very comfortable, even if they're marching into uncharted territory.
Absolutely. What about along the journey Andre, where we've all faced the inevitable failure, and we all have those feelings of failure or those thoughts of failure. You've obviously built a business from being just you to a team of 50, and you're working with some, pretty big names. How have you dealt with that inevitable failure that came your way as you went through that journey?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think that, you're not really equipped to deal with that because you see things as up and up and up and up, and you don't really think of setbacks because you haven't had them yet. And then I think, the biggest thing with failure is that if you sign up to be an entrepreneur, you just have to understand what that really means. Yeah. And I don't think people know what that means. I think they know it's hard work, but I think a lot of people work hard. But there's a psychological and emotional side to being an entrepreneur that is a lot is very pressing that you don't think about when you get started. And part of that is what you mentioned, Tony, which is failure and what happens when something fails. And I think that, look, it doesn't get easier. So any entrepreneur that's listening, yeah, it's going to suck, and it's not going to necessarily feel great. But what we learn as business leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs is that we just learn how to, I guess you could say, get over it quicker. Yeah. And we understand what that feeling is because we felt it maybe 100 times before. And the real thing about failing, I know this is something that a lot of people probably say, but it's about learning an application from that failure. And it's the application of it, not just the philosophy of it. And I think that you can always learn from it. But at the end of the day, it's going to happen because, look, even in sports, you fail your way to the goal. You don't, right? And so it's part of winning. Part of winning is didn't make it, didn't make it, didn't make it. All you need to do is get one extra goal than the other guy. That's all. That's it. So when you watch sports, they're not winning every down. In football, for example, they are failing their way to the finish line. Yeah. And so that becomes, Tony, a bigger conversation, which is it's the journey. It's the sport of business. And you have to be able to understand that striking out is part of hitting home runs, period.
Interesting way to look at it. I don't think I've ever seen failure in that sporting context, but you're absolutely right. It's what's that quote from Michael Jordan? It says, I've missed more than 10,000 shots, and it goes through all the things that he didn't do. And then that's why he was so successful. So it's absolutely true and absolutely relevant. So how do you stay focused on what it is that you're doing?
I think that, it's a combination of many things. I think having a very definite and defined goal and having some sort of a strategic plan on how to get there. Yeah. I think critical. I mean, we do that for our own clients where we'll do marketing plans and we'll do strategic plans and we'll do positionings and things like that. But we have to be able to do it for our own business and say, where do we want to go? Where are we going? Not just we're a great company that does good work, that has a great culture. That is great, but that's one category of a business. I think what a business needs is vision. And what it really needs with that vision is clarity. And I think that no business is going to say we don't want to grow. I think that's the need of a business. So that's not good enough. By what and in what ways and how are we going to get there? I think that's the objective and the purpose of a leader. And even bigger than that, I will say that let's say 70% of leaders have that pretty well mapped out. Does everybody on the entire team understand what the goal is? Is everybody aligned with that goal? And beyond that, is that something that's at the forefront of the company? Because you might have a great plan that you share with your team, and 365 days later, you go back and say, how did we do? But what we do is we keep our goals and our actions aligned. And so we understand that everything that we do is either taking us closer to where we want to go or pulling us away from where we want to go. So now you can make decisions based on the company going in a particular direction versus just being reactionary. And again, it's really funny, I'm using sport analogies because I'm not even a huge sports guy. But again, going back to American football, I don't everybody knows we're here to win the game, but we're here to win the Super Bowl. And I don't think anybody questions that. That's the end game. How you get there is one pass, one play at a time. But you have to remember that we're here for the greater goal. And you may not get it every time, but I think it's important to have a very clear path and to make sure that anyone in your organization can, in a sense, not just rehearse it back to you, but embody that and understand that they are also part of that bigger goal.
Yeah. And you were talking there about getting people aligned to the goals and having everyone working and working in the same direction. And that's one of those perennial challenges for all leaders. You're right. Most leaders will have a really clear understanding of where they want to take the organization, where they want to take the business, but then getting everyone on board is really incredibly challenging. And then during COVID, I suppose there's been all these additional distractions that have been taking people's attentions. They've been focused around their own survival. They've been anxiety and fear, which, as you were saying, as using some of the words that you were working through, we're pulling them away from potentially from where the focus is. So how did your team cope with the distractions that we would have seen during COVID?
Yeah, so we quickly maneuvered, and we realized that we have to set some sort of normalcy, even in the new normal, if you will, that we were dealing with. Right? And so that came from ensuring that, looking at ourselves and saying, what's the bond, right? The bond is the connection. The bond is the communication. So although we cannot just walk into a room and sit down and have a meeting, how do we maintain the constant communication? So we have technology in place in order to do that. In addition to that, it's encouraging people to not just have, phone calls or text messages or whatever, but to actually get on video calls, because the human, and I'm sure, Tony, you've felt this, and some of the people that are listening right now felt this, but hearing a person on the other end of that call is so different than hearing a voice coming out of your laptop or out of your phone. And I think that, we encourage people to continue to constantly communicate, or if not over communicate, to get on video calls as much as possible, but also to maintain your cultural habits. So if there are certain status calls that you have, those are still going on. We also do virtual happy hours on Fridays. We've invented and created ways so that we can all bond beyond work, which is what we do in our physical space anyway, but we have to make that an effort. And I think that, although, yes, it's a challenging time for most people, we also look at the fact that, we're blessed to have the business that we have, the clients that we have, that we were not affected, by COVID as a company, both from a health perspective and from a monetary perspective. So, I think it's like in anything in life, there's a long list of maybe cons, but hopefully there's a longer list of pros, and you just focus on that.
Yeah, I've actually seen quite a number of leaders become more intentional and more conscious around connecting with their team and making things a bit clearer. And I think sometimes, definitely what I've seen with some of the leaders that I've coached is that when you're working in close proximity and it's an open floor space, we tend to take that for granted. And then all of a sudden we've got people working remotely, and we've got to actually make that conscious effort, that intention to go and connect with them and make things clear and do it in a way that they appreciate. So I think that some of those positive things that we've seen during COVID, certainly I would want leaders to be holding on to that. And how can I embrace that moving as we go back into whatever business is going to look like as we move through it? So,
yeah, I totally agree, Tony.
So with one of my previous interviews called it the COVID collapse, here in Australia, we're starting to start that really long haul of, reopening and refreshing and getting the economy going again. And how does, in your eyes, so a business owner at the moment is sitting back. In many cases, they've got new hygiene, safety regulations that they've got to meet. They've been surrounded by pain. They've been ensconced in this pain and distraction. marketing's probably the last thing that they've got on their mind at this particular moment in time. So what would be some of the advice or some of the strategies that you would potentially put out there for a business owner that's kicking back into business and looking to comply with what they've got to comply with from a hygiene space, surrounded by pain? How do they get their marketing back into focus?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and we're doing that here too. It's like, making sure that the offices and, the team, the staff are following, proper guidelines as we get back. But like you said, look, I mean, you're going to have to face certain operational things that you didn't have to before because your business may have just halted. It may have just paused, and it wasn't created to pause, right? It wasn't built to stop. It maybe was built to slow down, but not stop. And definitely not at the rate that it did, and there's some whiplash that happened, and it's both organizational and structural, when it comes to the business. So absolutely, obviously, whether it be a product or service that you have, making sure that product and service is ready to go is obviously an entrepreneur and business leader's number one focus. But beyond that, I think that, from a marketing perspective, I think I would encourage people to look at their brand and has the messaging or their product in the marketplace, how has that shifted, right? What do people care about now? And it could be the same product positioned in a different way. And so we really have to look, and I think that the biggest opportunity from a marketing standpoint is to take a look back at the brand and say, now with what's happened, what would people really care about as it pertains to this product? Is our positioning still relevant? And do people use this product in maybe the same way, but now our product has a different meaning? So now, whereas it may have been something that was, tactical, maybe that's something that is more a moment of connection. So it's really taking a look inward and saying, hey, you don't need, a bunch of studies if you can't afford that or research around it. I think looking at your team and saying, do we need to pivot? Do we need to pivot our messaging and what we represent and stand for? And what's the right thing to do for our customers to embrace new mindset? So it might be the same customer, new mindset. So I think that my advice would be take a look at the mindset and see how you need to shift your messaging. And with that, there are, simple ways, when it comes to social media, when it comes to reminding people about your core values of who you are as a business is free, right? And I think that when times are good, it's about numbers and dollars and transactions, and you're rapidly towards that. But maybe in a time when there's a pause, I would encourage people to say, are your brand values, do people understand who you really are? Because now people are making decisions differently. Tony, you started this podcast with me talking about my website, but a lot of what you read back to me is in our brand book. And it's basically our brand surfacing to the forefront. And so I think that, and you reacted emotionally to that. And I think that brands have an opportunity to bring back a little bit of that meaning that they had that maybe didn't surface. It was maybe below the radar, and bring that back so people can be reminded of the style and the spirit of your organization while they try to align their new mentality to your product.
That's excellent advice. That's really sound. And I'm looking at it from an Australian context because we Australians, one of the people that I know in my marketing network, for example, he always tells me, Tony, we've got to embrace our inner American because we've got to be better at telling people what we're great at, because Australians aren't necessarily great at that. We fly under the radar. We keep our heads down. We've got this thing called the tall poppy syndrome where someone does pop their head up and they get it knocked down. So how would you encourage people to get out there, put it out there within a culture of we just roll our sleeves up and get it done, and we don't go looking for that, what we would potentially perceive maybe as a little bit of self-promotion?
Yeah, I don't think it's so much about, I think it's the pivot point is wrong. I think it's not about self-promotion. It's about transparency. And I think you need to look at it that way. And it's okay it's not about bragging, right? Because I feel that's kind of the culture that you're describing. Like, hey, we don't want to be too all about ourselves. We don't want to be too out there and brag about us. I don't think it's about bragging. I think we're looking at it in a completely the wrong way. I think that it's about being honest and saying, I have a great product that is made with whatever, all natural ingredients, because we care about health and we care about people and we care about these things. That's not bragging. That's being honest. And I think that, if a company can look at it and say transparency and honesty is critical in these times, that's not being salesy and that's not being arrogant. I think it's being honest. And I think there's a humbleness to that versus looking at it as being too verbose and too grandiose. So I think that, it's just be honest. And the people that don't want it, they're not going to go for it. Tony, you even said that. You organically went there with my brand. You said, what kind of clients, Andre, do you attract? I didn't, that innately came from you because you said, wow, here's this company that's saying there's a madness to our method, right? Reverse that. We ask questions. We're about chaos. Like there's an energy in that. And your point, your second, a different way to phrase that is, it sounds like you guys aren't fit for everyone. Who are you fit for? That's the real question. Yeah. And you got to be okay as a business to know who your audience is and be okay to not have to please everybody, because you just have to be targeting a core group of people that appreciate you for who you are as a company. And it's okay. We can't be everything to anyone. And that's kind of the mom and pop syndrome, right? I'm sure you've seen this where you go to a diner and there's a big menu. And I mean, it's everything from a salad to a burger to filet mignon and anything you can imagine. Like if you can think it's on the menu. Why? Because I want to cater to everybody. And that's a small mentality because you don't want to upset anybody. So if you can think it, we can make it, right? Yeah. But also places that you also know, Tony, that say, you know what, we just do burgers and fries and that's all we do. And if you want something different, if you want spaghetti, we don't have spaghetti and we're okay with losing you. But when it's time for a burger, we're the ones for you, right? So I think that there's a mentality there to say, it's okay if you focus and you stay in your lane and you're unapologetically who you are and allow that to stand out versus trying to be everything to everyone. Then your whole message is muddy. I mean, you go to those restaurants and I don't know what to eat, even though I have 50 options. I'd rather have 5 options. Yeah.
Yeah, we're making it hard, aren't we? And the amount of times I've talked to business owners and I've asked them a really simple question, who's your target market? And they say, well, everyone. And then we take a number of steps back to actually analyze that it's not really everyone. And even if it was everyone, you've got a huge marketing spend in front of you to get any sort of traction. So that's really great advice. And I hope that many of those businesses that are listening take some of that on board, because we do need to get really clear around who our target market is. And I'm guessing that you would find, even though you may get surprised every now and again at the companies or the businesses that actually come into your world based on what you've put out there.
No, I think we attract a certain type of really brand, but of people on the other side of that brand, people who are a little bit more, I don't want to say risk takers, but people who want someone to push them and to take their brand to the next level. That's the kind of people that we're for. We're probably not for the brands that just want to take it easy and just say, hey, you know what, this is working. Let's continue to do what's working. Yeah. We want to take what's working and pour, fire on it and fuel on it and ignite it, right? And take it to the next level. And I think that's what we try to do. So it takes a certain type of person. It's not about the brand, it's about the people behind the brand. And to that point, Tony, as we get, let's say, reviewed by a client and say, hey, we're thinking about working with you guys, but we're also looking at other agencies. We also actually do the same thing. It's a two-way street. It's like a relationship. It's not just, what do you guys think about us? And do you like us? It's, well, what do we think about you? And it's not in a rude way, but it's also, it has to be a cultural fit, because what you feel is the culture of the company you're working with. So I encourage people and business owners to look, and I'm sure many people listening can identify with this, where you may take on a client that, it's like a nightmare client. And sure, it's great money, but it's a nightmare to work on. Everybody's stressed, and you have people that don't want to work there and that environment. So I think that understanding the culture of the people and how they jive with your people is so critical, and not just say yes because they want you. It's like, but time out. If you took the money out of it, are we a good fit? And I think that's such a critical part to success, is not the deals that you're taking, but the deals that you're reviewing and maybe saying, maybe it's not the right fit for us.
Excellent. So it's a bit of a two-way street, cultural fit. Absolutely. Does it work for personal branding, what you do?
It does. I think that branding a person, a human being, is like branding a soft drink or any other kind of brand, or I think it's understanding your values, your position in the marketplace, and who you're right for, and what do you have to say that's unique in any different way, and finding out what that is. And it's almost like that white space exercise, right? Like there are many people that say these things. How am I going to be different, right? So Tony, in your world, there's business growth, personal growth, professional growth, people that do that. How is Tony going to be unique? Is there going to be a certain angle? You could say that, hey, it's about my personality. Great. That's one thing. What else is there, right? So I think you have to really position it as though it's not you, but as though it's this, this outside thing, and really look at it. And like you said earlier, a lot of, startups will say, well, our product is good for everyone. It's like, well, maybe that's true, but that's not necessarily how you go to market and saying, well, everyone can use this, so my product is for the world. That's a very kind of junior way of looking at business. I think that, albeit maybe true, that's not how you get there. You get there by having a very core audience and building a halo effect. And I think the same is true for personal brands, is how do I differentiate myself? And who are the people that are going to care? And you, Tony, could say anyone in business. Well, that's so wide. I don't think that's not realistic. And I think core values goes back to your own core values. Just in the half an hour or 40 minutes that we've been talking, Tony, I think you get my style and my vibe. And so, if I had to brand myself, I know exactly the type of person that I am and what I stand for and represent. And I think it's bringing that out and being relentless to ensure that people are constantly feeling that from your brand, your personal brand. It's no different than a product.
Excellent. Great advice. What are you working on at the moment? What's the focus?
Oh, I wish I could tell you. I literally can't tell you because we're sworn to secrecy. There's so many things. And even on our website, which is ELA1.com, we can't show most of our work because we're, there's products. So here's one of the things. I'll answer that question a different way. One of the things that made us, kind of COVID proof was the fact that we don't launch products and brands that come out tomorrow. We're 3, 4, 5, 6 months out, and sometimes even 1 year out from a launch. So if I had something that I was working on today that's going in market tomorrow, I probably would have been very affected. The good thing about what we're doing is that there's a long lead time to get there. So it made us kind of COVID financial proof in that way. But beyond that, because these products, whether it be entertainment or products, things like that, competitors, unfortunately, in my market space, there's competitors, and you see the kind of brands we work with that are out there. So, you almost can't talk about anything until it goes to market. It's not the answer you want.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
But we're working on exciting things with brands. And to that point, there's certain brands that we're repositioning to go back into the market with COVID. So that was applicable. There's certain industries that we're doubling down on that have amazing products that we're launching globally. We just actually, we actually shot a commercial because last week they allowed us to shoot in Arizona, which we couldn't shoot in California. So we had a crew out there, and there was a lot of precautions, but we're very busy and we're very blessed. And, I think if you check back with me in 6 months, I can answer that question about what I was working on.
So we'll start with that in 6 months' time. 6 months ago, what were you working on? Well, this is what we've seen come to light. No worries. So is there anything I haven't asked that I should have asked?
No, I think that, I'm pleased to talk to you, Tony. And I think that, the spirit of everything we're talking about is, I would will it down to an extreme amount of focus. Because I think your group that's listening right now are people in business. And I think that even if you are not an entrepreneur, meaning that you don't own your own business, doesn't mean you don't have an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that in our agency, we always look for people who are entrepreneurial. And I was asked once, "Hey, Andre, what's the definition of entrepreneur to you?" And I said, "Someone who can create something from nothing, period." And I think that every person listening, whether you own your own business or you work for somebody, or you're just trying to think about what you want to do, I think that being able to create something from nothing is the magic of what an entrepreneur is. So whether you are on a team or you are the person leading it, it does. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, mistake entrepreneurship for a business owner, or like someone who created an idea and an entrepreneur, and I launched this cool brand or this product. No, I think every single one of us has an entrepreneurial spirit, which is to go after something where you don't know what the outcome's going to be. You don't have a spreadsheet that's going to tell you whether you're going to make it or whether you're not, and that you go for it anyway. You don't have to see the entire clear path in front of you, but that you take every step along the way to ensure that you're creating something that's worth creating. And I think that that's what I would leave people with is like, entrepreneurial spirit, it's alive in every one of us. And it's a lot of excitement, and it's busy, and you have to be built for it. And I guess that's what I would leave people with.
Excellent comment to leave us on. Andre, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, I think the best way is through our website, which is ela1.com. And there's a contact page on there with email, phone numbers, etc. And I think that's probably the best way to contact us. And if anybody has any questions or anything, can find me there.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I found it incredibly beneficial, as I'm sure my listeners will as well. I really appreciate your time. Thanks, Andre.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Join the group of people impacted by seriously simple stuff to get you unstuck. The first book by Tony Coach Curl. Available at Amazon, Tony's Simple Stuff provides the tool for people to master your life and aspirations. 20% of every book sold supports Carter's cause.
Wow, what did you think of that? What were your key takeaways? Because I had a few. So Andre's built a marketing juggernaut, starting initially with himself and a laptop. And as he grew the business, one of the key things that I took on board was how grateful he was for what that has afforded him. He was grateful for those that joined him on the journey. He's the ones that joined ELA as part of the staff, as part of the team, and the clients who were attracted by the feel of the agency. So being grateful for people has laid the foundation for a great culture to be built. Now, I really like the way Andre spoke that leaders don't don't set out with a goal to create poor culture. And how true is that? Yet how often do we see poor culture in organizations? Because as Andre reiterated, leaders have to have a focus on their people. They've got to be grateful for the delivery of standards and performance. And by doing that, they create a culture where people are recognized and acknowledged and supported and valued. But you need to have that as an intention. You need to have that as that concept of being grateful for your team. So when you lose sight of your people, you give up on your culture. So there's a really good, strong message there. Andre didn't set out to create a great culture. It wasn't part of his vision as he commenced that journey of his business. But what he did have was a real belief in and around being grateful, a real belief on gratitude. And that was then, that supported his team as they came on board to help him grow the organization. Now, the other key takeaway was from a marketing component. So having a good product, having a good service that benefits others should be celebrated. And in Australia, for example, we don't do that enough. Too often we get caught in this nowhere space, this no person space, this no man, this no woman space, where we're coy, where we get a little bit cagey about the message that we're sending. And maybe we think that we're being considerate to others, but in reality we're probably doing them a disservice because we're not being as open about our product, about what is right for our potential customers than what we should be. Finding your authentic voice, finding that message is so important to attract the right customers to you. So finding your authentic voice, finding that message, it's so important. And the same applies for personal branding. People need to get a feel for you because what it is that drives you and how you convey that is what will attract the right people back to you. Authentic messaging is what sets business and people apart. Think about your messaging. Think about your message and break it down to something that maybe you're initially uncomfortable with. And maybe, just maybe, that's your starting point. So, fantastic conversation that I had with Andre. I hope that you've taken away some key points, and I know that it will be immense value to go back and revisit that as you build that marketing message, as you build that authentic space, that creative message that you want to get out to your potential customers. Remember, break it down into something that you're uncomfortable with, and maybe that's where we start. In today's disruptive world, of course, good leadership skills will always stand you in good stead. And if you are looking to build better leadership skills, consider the sponsors of our program, Think and Grow Business and the Coach Curl Academy. The Think and Grow Business is the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind, where we focus on personal, professional, and business growth. We have a program, we have a coaching program that will suit you, your team, or your business. Check it out at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. The Coach Curl Academy has over 77 programs now to help build a better you. And if you join, it's just $1 for the first month. The Academy equips you and enhances your mindset, your leadership, and your business. Check it out at the CoachCurlAcademy.com. I'll just say that again, the CoachCurlAcademy.com. Remember, where you are standing stronger, braver, and wiser. And whatever you do, don't ever forget the golden rule. Yes, you know what that is. Don't be an arsehole. This is Coach Curl signing off. I'll see you next time.